I'll give this to, send off to our Attorney General. Attorney General, you want to say a few words? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. I want to thank Senator Reid for organizing today's event and my colleagues in government for being here and being so supportive on this issue. I want to thank Cedric and his team at the Institute. The Institute has been doing work in this space for a very, very long period of time. It's work that's never been more necessary than today. I want to thank the Providence Police Department. I know how hard you have been working since the end of last week, Commissioner Parry, Chief Clements, you and your team. I know because our team has been there with you at least some of that period of time, and I know what an exhausting last number of days this has been. I wish I could say that the solution to this problem was easy, and I wish I could say that this was a new problem, but it's not a new problem. As Diana Garlington knows, the city and the urban core has been dealing with the issue of gun violence for a long time. And I wish, as I said, the solutions were easy, but they're not. You know, I'll just share a couple of thoughts that are in my head as we think about this at this time and in this place. Certainly, focused enforcement is necessary. We know who the shooters are, and if we focus our law enforcement efforts on those shooters, we take them off the street, we can bring the level of violence down. We know that that works. We can talk about legislative solutions here in Rhode Island. Talk about straw purchasers, but that's just not a theoretical concept. This year we indicted 5 individuals, one for purchasing for somebody else, 4 other people, 89 guns that got out onto the street. If we think that that's not driving violence in the urban core today, then we are kidding ourselves. 89 guns that he could buy, but the 4 people he sold them to or gave them to could not buy. That's what a straw purchase is in real life, and that impacts violence. We can talk about high-capacity magazines. They're real. They're on the streets of Providence. 2 weeks ago, I asked my team to pull together the cases we have pending right now, or that have been charged in 2019 and 2020 that involve a high-capacity magazine, a magazine with more than 10 rounds. Providence Police, or their colleagues in other cities, have recovered 16 of those magazines in the last 2 years alone. Magazines with 30 rounds in them. Magazines with 20 rounds in them. Found in car stops, in vehicle chases, in the execution of search warrants. That's a real problem that we can address if we address it now. But that won't fix our problem. That won't fix our problem. I'm thinking about a meeting I had here in 2017, down that hall, around the corner, and in the conference room. 7 young men, all of whom had had contact with the criminal justice system at an age well short of their 25th birthday. And mostly during that meeting I listened. But at the end of the meeting I had 2 questions for them. I didn't want to focus on them, so I didn't direct my questions to them personally. But I asked them, if you have a younger brother or sister, what would you tell them, or what would you tell us, as to how to make sure that they don't end up where you are, which is on that knife's edge between a productive life and one that leads to death or incarceration? And the one thing that those young men said to me was that we've got to have things for our kids to do after school. You know, the amount of, I've spoken to many people at the Providence After School Alliance. They talk all the time about how little time is actually spent in school. So what do we do to make sure that young people have things to do when they're not in school? And what the senators and the legislators and the governor and the mayor talk about all the time, and it's so important, we need to get our support behind it, is how, and the lieutenant governor, how do we do things to make life meaningful for people, young people in the urban core? And the second question I asked them is, what are you doing tomorrow? And the reason I asked that question was because I wanted to know what their plan was. Because if you're a young person and you're 21 or you're 23 or you're 25 or you're 18 and you don't have something to do the next day and you don't have a plan, then what do we expect those people to be doing the next day? And 2 or 3 of them had a plan. One was a caseworker, street worker here. And 2 or 3 did not. And until we solve for that problem, as to what those young people are going to do tomorrow, then we're not going to fix that problem. And I will tell you, as I talked to those young men, I thought of my own two sons, roughly the same age. And what was the difference between my sons and those young men? I'll tell you what the difference was. My sons had something to do after school. They had a plan, but they're fortunate. What we've got to solve is how that plan is available to everybody. And it's my hope that with what the delegation has proposed today, and I know what the governor and the mayor are working on, that we can begin to solve for that problem.